In this video, we're going to be blocking out the mech. Blockout is one of the most important phases of your modeling, and if you mess it up, the entire model is going to look weird. So make sure that the blockout is always well balanced, proportioned, and scaled, and makes sense in terms of design, because remember, it's your foundation. So if your foundation is weak, the building's going to crumble. So spend time with blockouts, and also do not rush into creating details. I know it's tempting, but it's a bad idea. Because, first thing is that you may want to change a blockout, and if you add details, you're going to have to remove them, so you waste time. And secondly, it's easier to change things at the beginning, during blockout stage, because the elements are very simple and basic, so it's really easy to, kind of reshape them. So take your time with your blockout, make sure it's really well done, and that's, like I said, the most important part of your modeling. So in this video, we're going to be starting with the blockout. We're going to start with the top part of the mech with the chassis, okay? So before we do anything, let's just save the file. So if our file crashes, we are good to go, okay? So here I'm going to go to Save As, and I'm going to name it Mech Blockout, and I'm going to save, okay? Now, on top of this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run power save, and I want you to see here what's going to happen. If I run power save now, I'm going to get this file with a suffix. So now every 60 seconds, like I told you before, all my changes is going to be saved to this file. That's really important, okay? Now, lastly, on the left-hand side, you got my screencast keys. So if you get lost, just rewind your video and, look there. Okay, so let's start Shift-A and let's add a cube. And we're going to scale it on Y, so SY, okay? Make it a bit longer. And we're going to scale it on Z, so SZ, like this. It's a bit taller, yeah? Cool. That should do, right? So now what we're going to do, we're going to maybe actually SX and scale it on X just a little bit, okay? That's pretty cool, okay, awesome. So now what we want to do, we want to apply scale, because if I go here to N panel, so press N, you will see that your scale is ununiform because we scale this object in object mode. So we need to apply the scale. So Ctrl A and apply scale, and this will reset it back to 111, okay? All right, so let's press N, let's move on, right? So now what I want to do is I want to add a loop here. So press Tab on your keyboard to enter the Machine Tools Mode Spy and go to Edge. You can do it very quickly, eventually, when your muscle memory kicks in. So you can just press Tab and move your mouse to Vertex, Object, or Face, right? So you can do it very quickly later on like this. You just have to, get used to it, okay? So let's go back to Edge and Ctrl R, and you'll see this kind of like a yellow highlight on your mesh. Now, if you click, you will add a loop that you can move. We're gonna move it somewhere here, and we're gonna click one more time to apply it. Now we got a loop on your mesh, okay? So now we can actually grab this edge here and GZ and drop it down. So this, loop's going to hold this shape in place, right? And here too, GZ, move it up a little bit, and there you go. And now we're gonna go to face mode, okay? Grab this face and gonna go SX and scale it next a little bit to give it a bit more, kind of like an aggressive look here from the front, right? Cool. Actually, let's just scale it on all axes just a little bit. There we go. That's pretty cool. Awesome. So now here, let's go to edge mode. Click and Control click and Control B, okay, to create a chamfer. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to move these verts a little bit to make this chamfer on this side a bit smaller. So go to vertex mode, select this vert and press GZ, so you can move it on Z axis, and here, GX. You can hold shift to slow down the movement. And now we have this kind of a cool tapering effect on our mesh, right? Now what we want to do, we want to symmetrize it to the other side. So select everything with A, then go to Mesh, and then go to Symmetrize. Now symmetry works based on the axis. So in here you can see that we got symmetrize from left to right, which is a default way of symmetrizing Blender. So if you open this menu here in the bottom, you will see all kinds of options. Now we symmetrize from -X, which is here, to +X. We need to reverse it, okay? So we're gonna go from +X to -X, and you're gonna, symmetrize from right hand side to the left hand side. The difference between symmetry and mirror is that mirror is a modifier, so it's actually not applying the changes, whereas symmetry is a hard mirror, which means the geometry on the left hand side was created by symmetrizing it, okay? So it's a real geometry now. So let's go back to object mode and see how we look. We look pretty good. This face could be a little bit bigger, to be honest. So let's go back to face, select these two of them with shift. So click, shift, click, and just make it a little bit bigger, maybe, you know. There we go. I think that's going to be a bit better. Cool. So now we're going to go to edge mode. Alt select this loop here and Control B this, okay? Now when you Control B something, you can actually bevel it by scrolling your mouse up. You're going to be adding segments, okay? And now in the bottom here, you can see the number of segments. We have 7. Now what you want to do, you want to have an even number of segments and uneven number of edges. Reason for that is because if you in the future want to change the resolution of your bevel, so you want to, you know, let's say resize it. So I'm going to alt click here and shift alt click all these. I can select all edges in the middle, every second one, and I can press X and dissolve them, which will basically halve the resolution of the bevel. So if you're creating a lower poly model out of your mesh, this is how you do it, okay? So remember this, and when you're adding bevels manually and you are actually adding them physically to your mesh, not through a modifier, try to maintain this rule of adding an even number of segments to your mesh, okay? Let's go to object, how we're looking. Yeah, we're looking pretty good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add another cube here in the middle, okay? So Shift A and a cube. And we're going to scale this on X, right? And now I want to scale it on Z and Y. So in order to do that, we're going to press S, right? And then Shift X, which will remove the X axis from the equation here. So let's make it a little bit bigger like that, okay? It's a bit too big, but it's okay. Go to right view with tilde key and press 5 on the numpad to go to orthographic. You can see here in the top orthographic perspective. You can switch it with a 5 on the numpad, okay? And we're gonna shift D this cube here. So now be careful, because when I shift D this shape, okay, and I right mouse button to cancel, I'll have two identical shapes in the same spot. This could create some problems in the future because you have literally duplicate geometry in the same spot. Yes, so just remember. So what we're gonna do here, we're gonna make it larger, right? And we're gonna move it higher. So GZ, move it higher, right? And then go to right view, orthographic. And we're going to rotate it. So press R, rotate it. You can hold Control to snap it to increments, right? So when you rotate it, R, Control, and you can snap it. Now what we want to do is we want to kind of align it here. So R, hold Shift, and you can kind of fine tune this. Now we have two choices, right? We can go parallel to this, or we can actually go a bit more aggressive. I think parallel maybe is fine. We can do something like this, right? So now with your Bull Tools add-on enabled, make sure that Bull Tools add-on is enabled, right? So here under Bull Tools, you need to have this enabled. So we're gonna be using shortcuts for booleans, okay? So click, shift click the mesh you wanna cut. So this is a cutter, right? We're gonna select the cutter, shift click the mesh we wanna cut, and then Control minus. What's gonna happen now, your cutter is gonna become a wireframe, okay? And your mesh is gonna be cut. But also you're gonna notice here we're gonna have a modifier. That's a boolean modifier, so you can turn it on or off here, right? Now the cool thing is that if I move this mesh, you can see that the cutter stays still and still affects the mesh, right? And if I move the cutter, it's gonna do the same thing, okay? So because this modifier is a live modifier, now what we can do, we can alter this cutter and kind of change how this mesh on the top is cut. So we're gonna go to edit mode here with the cutter selected, Control R, okay, click, move this here and click, and we're gonna grab this face here on this cutter, this one, and we're gonna align it. Now there's a way of aligning things or flattening things in Blender. If you want to flatten it on Z axis, which is here, right, the vertical one, you can go as Z0. Now the problem here is that the left hand side got lifted up and we don't want that, right? So instead of doing this with Blender, we're gonna do it with machine tools. And if you have Align Pi enabled, like I told you in the intro video, so go to machine tools, right, and make sure that the Align Pi here is enabled. So this one, what you can do is align yourself to view, cannot do sideways, because the Pi menu in machine tools works based off of view, so the way you align to the mesh, right? So we want to align down, so we need to align ourselves sort of like, you know, to the side. Press Alt A, and move your mouse to the bottom, right? And release, and boom, magic happens. You can do the same thing with verts, by the way. So watch. If I go to verts, right, select these two with shift. So click, shift, click, and then shift click this one. These two are going to align to the last selected. So Alt A, boom, same thing, okay? So this is a really powerful tool, and it works really great. Now, you can see that the object shape of our cutter didn't change, but in edit mode, we look a little bit different, right? Because the faces are moved up. So remember that with cutters, right, what you see in here, you see in the wireframe of the outline of the object, okay? Not the object itself. So this is an actual object here. So, don't get confused. Just always go to edit mode to see how your cutters look in edit mode, okay? Cool, so that's it. And now we're gonna organize our cutters, okay, to, make things a bit neat, because we have them here in one collection. So we're gonna create a cutter collection. So select the cutter here, press M on the keyboard and new collection, and we're gonna call it cutters, right? And then we're gonna add it to scene collection here. So now I can either turn it off in here, click in this eyeball, or press Shift 2. I can very easily remove cutters from my scene. So now Shift 2 to remove it, and we're good to go. Now in the bottom, we could either grab a new cube, or we could do this. Shift 2, grab the cutter, Shift D to copy this, right? And then we're gonna go G, Z, and drop it down. Now, if you want to reset location, rotation, or scale in Blender, you can press Alt-R, Alt-G, or Alt-S. Now, in this case, we rotated the cutter, right? So we need to reset the rotation, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to press Alt-R, and it's going to get, reset to 0 here, right? And if I press Alt-S and Alt-G, I'm going to go back to the cube. So let's just go Alt-Z to go back to our state, right? So you can always kind of, step back in terms of rotation, location, or scale, unless you're going to apply it here. So if I applied rotation, location, or scale, I wouldn't be able to do that. So if I shift this cutter here, right, and I'm going to apply all transforms, which means location, rotation, and scale, Alt-G, Alt-R, and Alt-S will not work because everything is zeroed. You see what I mean? So be careful with applying these attributes, because you may actually need it later on, right? Usually what we do, we apply scale, and I very rarely apply rotation, and I almost never apply location, right? Oh, anyway, let's go to side view here, right? So right view, orthographic. Let's move this up. So GZ, okay. Move it somewhere here, and here in the bottom, we're gonna leave a little bit more room, and we're going to go to edge mode, and now we're gonna select this edge with Alt. So Alt click to select the whole loop. And we're gonna GG and just move it to the front here, and then grab this one, right? Go to right view, orthographic, and then GZ, and we can just, move it up. We can actually, maybe angle it a little bit differently like this. That's kind of cool. Let's go to object view and maybe move it a little bit up. So somewhere here, shift select that and Control minus, right? And now we can kind of adjust, adjust it the way we want. Move it a little bit higher, maybe even higher than that, somewhere here. That looks pretty cool, I think. Now, let me show you something really important here on this stage, and that's auto smooth and shade smooth. Let me just grab a cube. You don't have to follow me, just watch, okay? So Shift D. And now if I'm going to run a bevel on this cube, right, you will see that my cube is faceted, okay? It's not smooth, right? This bevel isn't smooth. In order to smooth it out, what we need to do is we need to right click and shade smooth, and then add auto smooth here, which is under this tab, okay? All right, object data properties. So I could go to normals and click this thing. Now, since Blender 3.4, all we need to do is just right click and shade auto smooth. It's gonna add both, all right? So watch. Smooth, auto smooth, right? Now the problem is that you need to do it also on a cutter, because if I grab this cutter now and I'm going to bevel it, right, and I'm gonna run a boolean, you will see that my interior here is gonna be faceted, regardless the fact that my mesh is smooth and I have auto smooth on it, right? So what you need to do, you need to run it on cutters too. So right click, shade, auto smooth, and then peachy, right? So if you're working with vanilla Blender and you don't have hard ups of box cutter, you need to apply this manually to every single mesh and every single cutter. Unfortunately, can't do it in bulk, so you need to do it, individually. So let's click on a cutter, right click and shade auto smooth here, auto smooth, auto smooth, and auto smooth. And now shift 2 and we're good to go. Okay. All right, guys. Well, that's it for the first video. In next one, we're going to continue with the blockout.